Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, the 52nd Arizona legislative session is over. We'll take a look at the last-minute bills that passed and those that didn't quite make it. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times, and Luigi Del Puerto of the Arizona Capital Times. The state legislature adjourned overnight after an 82-day session, the quickest legislative session in 5 decades. Mary Jo, why the rush? Where's the fire? What was the deal here?
I think the rush was for the sake of the rush. Although President Andy Biggs in the Senate said, look, we got the budget out a month ago, which was also a rush. Another month to wrap things up is more than enough. Let's get it done. And he and Speaker Gowan by midweek had reached an agreement to try to shut it down by Thursday night. And
it didn't matter how much was heard or how much was debated, it was going to get shut down.
Yeah, I mean, despite this being the fastest session since 1968, things weren't moving quite fast enough for the Senate last night, which in a move that no one can remember if and when this has ever happened, but the Senate actually adjourned sine die while the House was still hearing bills, and a very contentious one at that, too. They'd been sitting around for, I think, 9 hours or something at that point without barely doing anything, just waiting for the House to send bills over. They've been kind of frustrated with the pace of the House all session, and especially yesterday. Finally, around 1 in the morning, they said, well, we're going to take our ball and go home, and just adjourned. And over in the House, they said, hey, well, I guess we can stop talking about this bill now. They went home, so we can't send it over to them.
Yeah, I've been covering the state legislature for about 9 years now. I have never seen this happen. The sine die, sign off, that, you know, when they wrap things up and say, hey, let's all go home, that's typically, that's done with some flair. You know, you've got committees from both sides crossing over and saying, hey, we're done, and let's all make speeches. And, you know, typically they make speeches about lawmakers that are going away, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know, Ted, I always admired politicians for their patience, because you need patience in that place to work. But patience ran out last night in the Senate.
Was it a lack of patience or just a lack of getting your act together over there in the House?
Oh, well, the House has had some scheduling problems, I think, and there was a lot of, they'd do a few bills and then they'd stop and they'd recess and they'd go away and then they'd come back, and it was just this real stuttering sense all throughout Thursday, as Thursday day turned into the evening, and you know they all took a break for dinner. It was just, it was a sense of disorganization, and it really made for great theater. I mean, often the legislature's not the most fun place to hang out, but I'll tell you, if you were on the House floor about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, it was good TV.
Well, it turned out to be, the way things worked out, turned out to be kind of a win for the Democrats, a rare win, I would guess, because the bill that the House was debating at the time was this long-running proposal by legislative Republicans to ban door-to-door ballot collection, or ballot harvesting as opponents call it, and this had come up a few times during the session, couldn't get through. They were trying to get it through last night. This debate had gone on forever and ever and ever, and I presume it probably would have passed, and then all of a sudden got yanked, and the Democrats let out a mighty cheer and said, hey, we won this one. And even though the Republicans over in the Senate were supportive of this too, they weren't willing to wait.
They weren't around.
In fact, what happened was that they were debating this bill when the Senate said, that's it, we adjourned. We're not taking any more bills. And at that point, I think Gowan said, oh, the Senate just adjourned, and so we're not doing this bill anymore.
So he wiped clean the board, and Jeremy's right. This ballot collection bill 1339 was passing. It was going to pass on party lines. That the Democrats, they all had to stand up and explain their no vote. We've heard these arguments over and over, and then after a while, you're like, oh, this is a strategy. And I think what happened is that over in the Senate, both Republicans and Democrats in the Senate were getting very impatient. It's just a long night, and what are we waiting for? And that frustration built, and I think got a little push from the Democrats saying, let's just shut her down. And they communicated that to the Democrats in the House. And the message was just keep your people talking. And they did. They kept talking even after it was clear that the Senate was gone. We're still hearing floor speeches. And then it was all called to a halt. And then I've got to say that the backdrop on this, too, in the midst of this, Representative J.D. Mesnard, who's a Republican from Chandler, had been carted out from the legislature the day before on a stretcher. He had a severe, severe migraine, taken to the hospital. Apparently he had a spinal tap. This is according to Representative Eric Meyer, the Democratic leader, who also happens to be a physician by training. But here comes Thursday. Mesnar comes back to work. He's got the dark shades on, but his back is really a mess. And so by late night, early morning, he's laying on the floor underneath his desk and bringing his hand up to push the button to vote. It was epic.
Well, it was quite the commitment there, if there's nothing else.
I think he should get the going the extra mile
No
award.
kidding.
There should be a Best of the Capitol award for Mesnar as a result then, huh?
Yeah, the new category.
Yeah, and just to illustrate the bedlam, if you will, that happened. I've never seen this one too. So typically, the Senate, the Republicans and Democrats do their caucus. When they do their caucus, that means they discuss a bill in their own parties.
It's like a party meeting.
It's like a party meeting, and essentially in the Senate, it's done on the first floor. Republicans would go to their room, Democrats would go to their room, but they had been waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, there's just this one bill from the House. One bill came over, and they were going to caucus it. That's part of the process. And so somebody started joking about, why don't we just do it here on the Senate floor, on the second floor? Everybody, all of us participating in caucusing this bill, and that's exactly what happened.
So what we saw was some rare kumbaya in the
gonna
Senate,
say,
although
yes.
maybe not so rare. We've seen them do some things, working together.
Caucus of the whole. It's a
Yes.
new trend.
Not so much in the House. That's a House divided and.
You mentioned that the ballot harvesting suffered because of this. It failed. Didn't the effort to kill clean elections also fail because of
No,
it?
that actually...
Did that make it?
No, that went through... Oh, it didn't make it. It went up for a vote in the House.
Oh, it
'cause
got to a vote, okay.
They didn't need to send that back to the Senate because it was the same version that the Senate had passed. In fact, they made an amendment in House elections a couple of days earlier and ended up pulling that and voting on the original version. So that went up at the House, but it failed by 2 votes. So
Really?
Yeah,
really,
on
at
its
that
merits.
point, a few of these people had actually gone home. I think people weren't around, and there were at least I think at least 2 people I counted who probably would have been yes votes who weren't there anymore. And
So you got one guy lying on the floor who can't move to vote, and you have a couple others who can't be bothered to be there?
Well, I think in the Senate, you have almost the full Senate that, by this hour had gone home.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Also, what we don't yet know is there were a number of bills that the House they kept working even after they learned that the Senate was going home. They gave up on the ballot collection one. And ignored the Democrats' call to just sine die it and shut it down there. And they said, no, we're going to keep working on our bills. So they did the clean elections repeal, and that failed. Other bills they passed, but if those bills had amendments that needed to go back to the Senate, no, it ain't happening.
Nothing to go
I
back
don't know
to.
what that tally is at this
Yeah.
point. It's really hard. It was hard to find anybody today.
I think it's 40, 50 or so bills that the Senate effectively killed by when they sine died because stuff that either hadn't gone to the Senate yet or it had been passed through and had been amended and it had to go back, and they sine died, and I think they scattered pretty quickly to make sure no one could make them come back.
Okay, with that in mind,
Yeah.
which of those bills do you think will come back next session?
I'm betting every one of them will come back next year. I mean, if those bills had gotten that far in the process and just got caught in this theater that we saw last night, I'm presuming that their sponsors will probably bring them back again next session.
Well, ballot harvesting, I think there's no question that's going to come back. This is a major Republican priority. They passed this as part of that omnibus bill in 2013 that they ended up repealing later because it was referred to the ballot for a referendum. They've been trying all session to pass it. The clean elections repeal, which would have referred the question to the 2016 ballot. I think there's no question that comes back next session as well.
Unless, of course, that they get a deal with the Clean Elections Commission. As you know, they were trying, or there was the opportunity to actually strike a deal between the state legislature and the Clean Elections Commission. Of course, it was late, very late in the process, and Clean Elections Commission decided, let's just hold off on even attempting to make a deal, and let's just see where this goes.
But that brings us full circle back. If this is such important legislation and such critical ideas to Arizona and the well-being of the state, what's the rush? Couldn't you have just said, we're going to come back after Easter weekend? I mean,
Well, I think in a way it's a statement that maybe it's not that critical.
Yeah.
I mean, that was certainly the sentiment in the Senate on Wednesday when they decided they're going to just shut this thing down. What's so important? What is so important? and this separates the wheat from the chaff. There was a lot of chaff.
Well,
And of course, the
yes.
presumption is always if it's that critical, if it's that important, really, it should have been approved a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And by the way, I think Senate President Andy Biggs had always been wanting to get out earlier. I think if he could get away with it, he would have signed died 3 weeks ago.
All right, let's get to some of the bills that did get through here. Now, the Real ID bill, this a clean, quote unquote, clean version passed. What does that mean?
Well, what this means is this is as part of the post 9/11 security measures that the federal government took. They mandated this program called Real ID, which is tamper-proof, secure IDs that starting next January, every state has to be using those in order for people who hold those licenses to get on an airplane. And this is something that Arizona opted out of back in 2008 under Janet Napolitano, a Democratic governor, no less, who a few months later became the person in charge of enforcing this rule at Homeland Security. But and this has kind of lingered on for a while, and now that this deadline is coming up for next January, it kind of came to a head where we had to do this, or Arizonans were going to need passports to get on a flight to go to San Diego or Vegas or something. And over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of negotiations over trying to get this through, and they finally, the governor's office started to get engaged. This was starting to become kind of embarrassing, and they finally managed to get this through yesterday.
But it took it was in 3 different bills before it could actually get through. And it wound up not being much of an issue in the Senate, but it became sort of a pawn in the House as they were, strategizing on other bills. Now, there's a lot of questions about this that even MVD can't answer yet. But the bottom line is that if you want to travel on a plane, on a commercial flight, allegedly beginning in mid-January next year, you're going to have one of these driver's licenses. To get one of those, you are going to have to go down to MVD. You're going to have to get a new picture. You're going to get a little gold star on your license.
15 some odd bucks, something along those
Well,
lines?
interestingly, that fee is going to be set by the director, which, we have this another lawsuit going on saying that we shouldn't, that's actually a tax increase and it needs
Yeah.
a different kind of vote. But Bob Worsley, the sponsor of this, says, look, this is the best we could do. It gives people an option. It doesn't contravene our law saying we're not going to comply. So you can opt in. And do you want to pay maybe $15 for a new driver's license? You want to put out $120 to get a passport? Yeah.
Right, and the genesis of the prohibition against Real ID is pretty interesting because back in 2008, we got a coalition, very diverse one, and the
Yes.
very rare one, we got the John Birch Society, the ACLU, moderate Democrats, Karen Johnson, remember Karen Johnson, Republican senator from Mesa, all together said we shouldn't do Real ID. And obviously, now that we have this, we have a choice to make. Do we inconvenience the people of Arizona who might go to San Diego and have them basically get a passport overnight, perhaps? By the way, when we went to the Philippines, when we went back to the Philippines, we had to overnight our passport. I think we had to pay about $500 for that.
Oh,
So that's
my
pretty
goodness.
hefty.
Yeah, no kidding.
And people won't be required to get these licenses. By the way, as Mary Jo mentioned, this is optional. And I'm wondering how many people are going to realize they need to go get these new licenses, because this is really the sweetener that allowed this to get through the legislature. Is people didn't want to be forced to comply with this federal program, with this federal overreach. So the way around that is, well, it's an optional thing. If you want it, you can get it, pay a few bucks extra. And that kind of makes everyone happy.
But there's still a lot to be determined. How Will Ducey signed the bill, and he's pretty much indicated he would. How long will it take MVD to put together this driver's license? What kind of wait time? And will the feds really enforce that January 19th date? I mean, I heard from one reader who got on a plane recently at Sky Harbor, and his driver's license, his current one, was expired. They let him on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that one goes through. We finally got some. Well, what happened to this bill now restricting school comment? If you were a school employee, like perhaps a supervisor in Mesa, a superintendent in Mesa, and you said something critical, like perhaps the governor, for example.
Perhaps.
What happened to that bill?
that bill died. That bill
Did it?
Didn't make it out of the process. And that bill has always been regarded as really a retaliation to your not so theoretical scenario there. And it would have prohibited basically educators and personnel of school districts from using district resources and taxpayer dollars and engage in political activities.
Did we figure out exactly what that means? I mean, I can't stand in front of a classroom of kids, I guess, and say things, but
I think there's some dispute over exactly how far this goes. I mean, this is an extension of kind of a perpetual issue for legislative Republicans who are always concerned that folks at schools and school districts are using taxpayer resources to push political agendas. You usually see this in the context of these bond override elections, stuff like that, where they don't want the schools sending out flyers from their own materials or sending out stuff from school computers, that kind of thing. This is kind of a new level of it because, as you guys mentioned, the Mesa superintendent who kind of lashed out at Governor Ducey and faced some retaliation of his own from some outside allies of the governor's as well.
Indeed. All right, the ban on cities that want to ban plastic bags, that went through, huh?
Yes, so plastic bags win. I mean, in other words, this was an argument carried a lot by marketers and grocery stores saying, look, this could create a patchwork of bans. Some cities might ban them. Tempe's looking at it. Flagstaff's looking at it. And other cities won't. Now, how are we going to cope with this? How are we going to focus, our efforts? And they were effective in making that argument.
But the bill also includes that you can't force a business to report its energy use as well?
Yes, that was included in the measure. And again, as Mary Jo had touched on, I think for the grocers, and we always hear this argument, by the way, when it comes to local entities, writing their own rules about local issues, and that's that. How are we to deal with multiple cities? For example, if you're one business and you have multiple sites, how are we going to know? What are we going to do with one city that bans it and another city that doesn't ban it, and it adds, supposedly adds another layer of regulation, another burden on businesses. And that's always been an argument raised, in a very receptive argument raised in the state legislature.
The energy reporting requirement is part of this movement to try to drive more efficiencies, but you don't know how you can be more efficient if you don't know what your energy usage is. So that one died. And this is also in the vein that the legislature does like to tell local governments what they can and can't do. And that's an annual argument.
For example, gun restrictions as far as gun sales, the idea of cities enacting their own bans. I think Tucson was a focus of one of these, but did that bill go through?
I believe that one did not go through. That was what I think.
It did.
Did it?
The 1291, the preemption one.
Yes.
That would open you up to fines up to maybe $100,000 if a city does that. That bill passed, and again, this is the fog of sine die, but the way I read it, Representative Farnsworth had an amendment in the House that looked like it would have softened some of those penalties, but that's not going to count because that amendment had to go back over to the Senate. So the underlying bill, I think, can get approved can become law, but not the Farnsworth amendments.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, does the Senate have to concur with the change made in the House?
They would, but if they don't, then I think the underlying bill still goes through.
Got it.
Okay, I'm glad you got it.
Well, no guarantees
Yeah.
here.
All right, expanded vouchers for American Indian students. Was this the Carlisle Begay? Thank you so much for all your help, Bill.
Certainly the way it's being viewed. Carlisle Begay, of course, the Democratic senator, is the one Democrat in the legislature who voted for the budget with the governor and the Republicans. This is, of course, a school choice issue, which is also near and dear to conservatives' hearts in general. So it kind of makes sense that he's the one, he's voting with conservatives, so they're probably more inclined to vote for his bill, support those. Plus, it's a conservative issue, so it all kind of makes sense.
All right, one more. The state, no state resources to comply with the Affordable Care Act, which apparently, and perhaps I'm wrong on this, but it also seems like it means the state can't establish its own health care exchange as well.
Correct. I mean, Representative Justin Olson, who is the sponsor of this measure, said that's the most important part of this, this assertion of state sovereignty, and we're not going to use any resources to comply, is that if, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court case that's pending, the federal health care exchange may not happen, which could then lead to states saying, well, maybe we should establish our own. This would prevent the state from doing that.
All right.
Don't forget the Inspector General bill.
Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet here. Jeremy, we'll go to you on this one. The Inspector General bill, or the governor's personal investigator reporting to the governor with privacy attached. Where did that go?
That went nowhere. This was a late introduction by something that got pushed kind of late in the session by the governor as a strike everything amendment. Went through the committee. never got a vote on in the full Senate. And starting yesterday, what we've been hearing is that they didn't have the votes. It wasn't going to come up. There's a lot of negotiations throughout the day, but it never came up. And there's conflicting versions of what happened to this. This is an entity that would answer directly to the governor, look for waste, fraud, and abuse in all the state agencies. Attorney General Brnovich had some problems with it early on. You're hearing that the business community, or at least some folks within it, had some issues. And the line from the governor's office is, well, this died largely because of special interest. Some people might have kind of some shady business. They don't want people to shine a light on this. What other sources might are telling me, the word they use to describe that explanation, you can't say on television, but really a lot of Republican lawmakers just didn't like this. It's expanding government. This entity would have subpoena power, and
And it came hurtling down the tracks at the last second, did it not? I mean, there
It
wasn't
did,
much
it did.
discussion
It was
on
one
this.
of two major proposals that the governor basically dropped in the legislature's lap like very late in the committee hearing process. And what that means is that they push it through what's called the striker. And when you do a bill through what's called the striker, when you strip a bill all of its content and attach a new language, what basically that means is that that bill is getting vetted in committee in only one chamber, and that's always been a criticism against strikers. Very late in session, and especially something as big as this one, or in the case of the other proposal, which is to eliminate one state agency.
Was this really the biggest rift you saw this session between the legislature and the governor?
Probably. I mean, there was some pushback on parts of the budget as well,
Yeah.
especially Ducey's call to put more money, to take money out of education budgets and put it into the classroom, which would have cut those other parts of the budget. The legislature relented on that. That was probably the other big pushback.
So do we see the inspector general idea, the private investigator idea?
Possibly. What a couple of sources told me is, in reality, the governor can do most of this by executive order, except for the subpoena power. That's the thing. One thing you really need legislation to do. And what the governor's office is saying today is, well, we're going to take a look in the off session at what we can do without the legislation. So we'll probably see a lot of this emerge just through executive order, executive directive, and if they decide they need that subpoena power, maybe they come back next session and maybe this time they actually work with lawmakers, have some stakeholder meetings, do the kind of things you normally need to do to get some contentious legislation passed that didn't happen this year.
A couple of signings of note. The abortion bill was signed. That one, of course, has Arizona back in the national headlines over what some call questionable medical science. Quickly.
According to one columnist from the Republic, I think voodoo science is how she put it. So yeah, this proposal basically has two major components. One is that it would prohibit the offering of abortion services on the federal exchange. Arizona has an exchange, but it's run by the feds. So that's one. That's actually the underlying proposal. That's the underlying legislation. And then this amendment would require doctors to basically say, if you had medication abortion, that may be reversed. And of course, a lot of doctors had problems with that language of requiring them to tell their patients that, yeah, you can reverse an abortion because they don't think that's based on science.
Court challenge likely on something like this?
Don't you reckon?
Okay.
Isn't there always?
Yeah, just a rhetorical question. Okay, we got about a minute left. Very quickly, winners and losers overall in this session. We'll start with you.
Overall, I mean, except for the Inspector General thing, I think Governor Ducey was one of the big winners. He got almost everything he wanted, even some of that stuff that came up late, like the Weights and Measures bill. He worked really closely and really well with the legislature in this first honeymoon session. So overall, I think he won most of what he wanted.
Loser?
Police officers who want to keep their names secret after officer-involved shootings.
Fair enough. Winners and losers.
Oh, I think the governor, obviously, and Andy Biggs. I mean, he got the budget he wanted. This guy's always been, he's always wanted a fiscal responsible budget, a budget that he thinks would move the state towards structural balance in 1 or 2 years. He got that proposal. At least if all the provisions of this budget work out as planned, he would get a balanced budget.
What do you think, Mary Jo?
I think you could put airline travelers in both the winner and the loser category. They're going to be able to get an ID that will allow them to get on a plane without having to have a passport. But they're going to have to go put some money out and go stand in a line at MVD. And then I'd also add that probably, the underprivileged in Arizona lose. I mean, mostly because of the cuts in the budget for aid to families raising children, low-income families, and some of the child safety measures that got cut.
I'd be remiss to not add that the panhandlers also lost this.
Panhandlers also, well, a certain kind of panhandler lost.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about the legislative session's impact on cities and towns. And we'll learn about a science fiction genre focused on the environment. That's Monday at 5:30 and 10 on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, a look at the legislative session from the business community's perspective. Wednesday, we'll hear from Head Start on the group's 50th anniversary. Thursday, ASU physicist Lawrence Krauss returns with the latest science news. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.